Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to this week's episode of Tracy's Tuesday Talks. I'm your hostess, Tracy Latono with Golden North Financial Coaching, where I have the honor and opportunity of helping growth-minded people and small businesses who are stressed and anxious about finances conquer their money goals and step into financial freedom. Today, I'm going to talk about a topic that is buzzing around in a lot of people's minds, and that is the debt ceiling. Are we going to hit a deficit in this country, and what can you do if that does happen? So before we get started, I want to share some information with you. So in January of 2023, the US hit its debt limit ceiling set at that time of $31.4 trillion dollars with a T as its debt ceiling. So what that means essentially is the government has all these different obligations to pay for programs, for benefits, for compensations, all sorts of money going everywhere from the US government. I mean, think your roads, think your VA disability compensation, think your Medicare and Social Security, federal employees, government contractors. All of those obligations cost more than what the United States is bringing in per year. So the United States is roughly about $1 trillion short per year in meeting those obligations. So the US has to borrow money from somewhere. Usually it's from the people or it's from foreign governments to be able to pay its bills. Often like what a lot of Americans do with credit cards and personal loans when their expenses are more than their income. And what's happening right now is you have one side saying one thing about, hey, we should just like not worry about cuts and just raise the debt ceiling. And then you have the other side saying, hey, we need to get this spending under control. We've got to cut back in discretionary spending. We've got to make some adjustments to our budget, essentially, so we stop this stupid cycle of running into this every couple of years. The last time we were in this position was in 2011, excuse me, my apologies, 2021. And in 2011, I personally remember it was April of 2011. My husband was in the military, opening his leave in earnings statement, aka what his pay stub was going to be, and it was zeros all across the board while he was in the military. So hopefully we don't get to that point. There is a moving deadline. At first it was June 1st, and now it's June the 5th that they need to make a decision by to get this bill passed between the House of Representatives and the Senate. So what does $31.4 trillion actually mean? What that means, let's break it down for you. I'm going to break it down for you in two different ways. An auditory way that's connected to time, as well as a visual. So in seconds, 1,000,000 seconds is equivalent to about 11 and a half days ago. 1,000,000,000 seconds, or I would say, a billion with a B, is equivalent to 31.7 years ago. 1,000,000,000,000 seconds, that's trillion with a T, is the equivalent of 31,688.8 years ago. Our government is 31,688.8 seconds / dollars in debt. Here's a visual of what $1 trillion looks like. And hopefully I won't get fact checked for this because I shared this on Facebook a few years ago and I got fussed at. What you're seeing right now is an actual visual of what $1 trillion looks like. You see this little dude over here the average height of the person standing next to an entire massive warehouse long chock full of double stacked pallets is just $1 trillion. You see $1 million over here, which you would think, man, that's enough to retire on. Looking at that, whew, that doesn't seem like a whole lot, but that's something for another day. Here's 100 million in this middle picture, a billion with a B over here on the right. And in comparison, our government owes 31.4 of these warehouses in debt. That's crazy, guys. So who is this going to affect? So if the government does default, which it's only defaulted very, very, very briefly one time in 1979, and that was a processing error, a check processing error. Who does it affect? Essentially, everyone who relies on the government in some way, shape, or form. This includes Medicare, which 25% of Americans age 65 and over rely on their Social Security to pay for over 90% of their bills. That's kind of scary. We're talking Medicaid, so those who are on like government healthcare programs who are the lower income. We're talking veterans. This is the one that's going to get me fired up. Veterans benefits are at risk. Federal employees. So if you remember a few years ago, like museum workers weren't getting paid, those who worked for the free museums who were paid by the government, that includes those people again as well. And basically all government programs. So this includes like welfare, this includes food stamps or SNAP, whatever you want to call it. This includes anything that has to do with the federal government. So what can you do with all of this craziness and scariness going on? Well, friends, I want to remind you that no matter what goes on in the White House, you still have control over your house. But here's some practical tips to overcome this should the government come into a deficit, which I think it's going to be an 11th hour thing personally, just my opinion. I don't think this is going to happen because if you take away the benefits of your veterans, you're going to tick them off. You take away the benefits for Social Security that people have been pouring into their entire lives, you're going to tick off a lot of people. The list goes on and on. So here's some things that you can do should this happen, or should you ever be in a position to where a paycheck that you were relying on before doesn't come through. And this is also good information if you're having a hard time paying your bills as it is. The first thing, clearly, of course, I'm going to say, is do a budget. A budget is more than just a list of what your bills are, minus your income, and then the rest is a free-for-all. It is intentionally assigning a mission to your money. Every single dollar that comes into your bank account gets a mission. And then you track your transactions throughout the month. That's essentially like telling your soldiers or following up with your soldiers, making sure that they're doing their mission that you put in place for them. That's tracking your transactions to the budget. The next thing to focus on, once you have all of that information, once you know what your money is going to look like for the month, focus on your four walls first. Your four walls include food and medication, because you got to eat, you got to take your medicine to be well. The next thing you focus on is transportation. So this is gas and insurance for your vehicles. Your car payment is debt. We'll focus on what to do with that later. So far, food and medication, transportation, which includes fuel and insurance, so you can actually get to your job. Next is going to be utilities, to make sure that you have electricity, water, communication, all of that. And then last is going to be your rent and your mortgage. The reason why rent and mortgage is last, as much as it sucks to not pay your rent or your mortgage because it's like a personal thing, um, that's going to take the longest time for an adverse action to happen. If you don't eat in 3 days, you're going to die. It's going to be about 6 months or so on average, roughly, before the bank is going to be like, okay, where's the money pay up? So that's why those are in that order. The next thing after your four walls are taken care of is negotiate your bills. So if you have a ton of subscriptions, you've got your Netflix, you've got your Audible, you've got your gym membership, you've got a ton of other stuff, put those on pause just for now until things stabilize again. If you have debt payments, which that's where that car payment goes, is that debt payment, call them up and be like, hey, I'm affected by XYZ. Are there any programs or anything that we can do to help as this is going on until things settle and I can start paying again? I want to pay you. I cannot pay you right now. What are some ways that we can work together on this? You can absolutely do that. During the shutdowns in 2020 and even shortly after everything opened back up again, I had several clients who called their credit card companies and were like, hey, I need to negotiate my credit card payments. And they were able to either get a lower monthly payment or they were able to do zero interest. And if there's absolutely nothing that you can pay towards your debt bills, be upfront with them, guys. Don't not pay them and not communicate. Please just call them up and be like, hey, I'm in a tight spot right now. This stinks. I want to pay you, but you're at the bottom of the list right now. So this is what's going on. I just wanted to communicate with you so you didn't think I was ghosting with you. Is there anything we can do to not have fees or interest charges or late fees tacked on to the balance? You can absolutely ask those things. After that, if you don't have enough income, there are places that you can go to ask for help. So if you belong to a local church, that would be a place. Um, you can call 211, which is like a nationwide number to get connected with local resources. They can help with things like utilities or finding food banks or finding other nonprofits that might be able to help pay your rents. Give United Way a call. They have programs set up to help people in need as well. Salvation Army is another one. And if you're a veteran, there are lots of resources for you. Get connected with your county veteran service officer or CVSO. Some states just call them VSOs, veteran service officer, and see if there's any grants available to help in those tight spots. I know here in Indiana, we have something that's called the Military Family Relief Fund, and they will pay up to, I think it's $2,500. I'd have to double check that as a one-time payment to help cover bills if a veteran is in need. So there's programs like that all over the place. And then lastly, because all of this that we have is not our own anyway, if you believe in God, I want to comfort you and reassure you with a scripture, Philippians 4:19. And my God will supply every need of yours according to his riches and glory in Jesus Christ. He's talking about meeting needs to be able to carry out your giftings, to be able to carry out the mission that the Lord has for you. And the same God who takes care of me will supply all your needs from his glorious riches, which have been given to us in Christ Jesus. It does not mean that we're not going to go through hard times. What that means is, and I can attest to this personally time and time again, if you're a believer in Jesus, you have the creator of all of this who cares more for you than he does about the sparrows, and he feeds the sparrows. Rely on him, and trust in his provision. And in that, there are some other things you can do as well. You can sell stuff. You can take on gig work or a part-time job. You can increase your income in other ways. I've had clients who enjoyed doing craft things. Had a client who enjoyed making wreaths, like ribbon wreaths, and she would sell them for like 60 bucks a pop. And that was like her side gig income. Had another client who loved making tile mosaic tables, side tables. She would sell those for like 300 bucks a pop. And that would be extra income into their budget. So if you have a hobby or talent or a gift, even if it's just, hey, brother in law, do you need help cleaning your pool? Because Memorial Day just happened and all the pools are open now, hopefully. Or, hey, do you need help with some yard work? Or is there anything that a small business might need help with on the side that you have a gift that you can do? There are ways to create extra income. There are things that you could sell. Perhaps it's that weight bench that's been sitting in your basement for 10 years. Who knows? But don't panic. Breathe. And remember that no matter what happens with the government, you have control of your own house. And trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not in your own understanding. In all your ways, submit to Him, and He will make your path straight. Thanks, guys. I will see you next week for Tracy's Tuesday Talks.